After going through the All-22 film from the Bears' loss to the Detroit Lions, we have a better sense of what wasn't working for that Bears defense and how the offense came up short on that last drive of the game.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lorin Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Bears. You can like Locked On Bears on Facebook. Join the Locked On Bears Facebook group for even more Bears talk. And make sure you hit that subscribe button on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel to keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today, and hopefully every single day. Today's episode of Locked On Bears is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. On the show today, we go through what we learned from the All-22 film against the Detroit Lions. We'll get a better sense of, defensively, what the Bears were doing. A very different approach, I think, we saw them take against Jared Goff and the Lions in a few different ways. We'll kind of go through what we were able to learn on that side of the ball and some of the things that are just, I don't know how much more you can do about what the Bears were trying to do in that regard. Then we'll turn our attention to this offense, some of the things that were working really well offensively, some of the things that were not. And we'll wrap up kind of looking at that last sequence, the first, second, third, and fourth down that ended the play one after another. That I think it is a little more enlightening on what exactly happened there and the couple of plays that almost were, but just quite weren't, that I think highlights where the Bears are as a team at this stage. But I wanted to start with this Bears defense because, the last 3 games in a row, they've scored 29-plus points. And in any game, scoring 29 points on offense should be enough to win games if you have anything close to a mediocre defensive performance. And the Bears have struggled to stop and keep opponents, obviously, under 29 points. They have not over that span. And so I was curious to kind of dig in and see what the approach was against Jared Goff. And it really was quite different, I think, than what we've seen the Bears typically do. They're certainly game plan specific. They're always going to do things a little differently against each opponent to kind of tailor to the matchups that they see in that game. But this Lions one in particular seemed a bit more of a deviation off of some of the things we've come to expect from them a little bit more. Like, for example, the Bears were very, very heavy in man coverage in this game. When you go back through a lot of cover one and just one single deep safety and sometimes an underneath guy and sometimes the linebacker is blitzing because they were also very, very blitz heavy. Like, those were the 2 big takeaways from me in this game is the Bears blitzed Jared Goff a ton and the Bears sat back in man coverage a ton. In large part, I think, because of on blitzing plays. They didn't do really much zone blitzing. It's almost always man blitzing when the Bears went to the blitz in this game. And I think it kind of told you the story of the game in a lot of cases that, the Bears blitzed Jared Goff. I went and looked at the numbers afterwards. 50% of his dropbacks, 15 plays where they blitzed, 15 plays where they didn't in terms of passing plays. And when those blitzes got home, certainly we saw Jack Sanborn get the only 2 sacks in the game. When they were able to get pressure with those blitzes, it was very effective. The problem was, with or without the blitz, the Bears pass rush was not getting home consistently. That, there were 15 plays where they blitzed, and Jared Goff was under pressure on 9 total plays. And that doesn't mean that all 9 of those plays were even blitzes. So there's at a minimum 6 of their blitzes did not generate pressure on Jared Goff. That's a problem. It also tells you that 21 of their passing plays, they did not have pressure on Jared Goff, which, again, Goff's not a great quarterback, but give him time in the pocket against a depleted Bears secondary outside of the safety positions, and he's going to be able to find, Amon-Ra St. Brown for 100+ yards. We saw what happened. That was a lot of what happened in this game, right, is that I think the Bears looked at it and said a couple things. Like, one, this is a good Lions offensive line overall compared to other offensive lines they've played. And that, two, this pass rush has been largely ineffective. Can we blitz Goff? Can we make him a little more uncomfortable and be disruptive? Because on plays where Goff was under pressure, he was 1 of 5 for 6 yards. One completion on those plays under pressure, a couple of sacks and a scramble or two in there as well. That was, it was incredibly effective. As it is with most quarterbacks, getting pressure on them, but especially with Goff, like, he did next to nothing on the few plays that they got him uncomfortable and under pressure in the pocket. They just couldn't do it otherwise, despite blitzing so heavily. And then you had so much man coverage on the back end that you're asking Jalen Jones for all the game, and for a stretch of the game, Lamar Jackson coming off of the bench to cover the Lions wide receivers one-on-one with a single deep safety most of the time. So there's some safety help, but when you're the outside cornerback there, for the most part, you're on your own. And the Lions aren't going to, fool you with any sort of elite wide receiving core right now because of their injuries. But I don't trust either of those two cornerbacks to cover Amon-Ra St. Brown one-on-one, which we saw the results of quite a bit through that game. And even the likes of Khalif Raymond and Tom Kennedy and a couple another name or two that just were no-namers at wide receiver. Like, they were able to get open on some of those plays as well. And some of this comes down to it's really hard to be good in coverage when you're starting a rookie undrafted free agent and you're playing a former undrafted free agent on the outside. That there's also just a talent deficiency there when you have injuries at cornerback, and we're already not the deepest at that position to start. And so the safeties can only do so much, and your blitzes aren't getting home. And that combination of blitzes aren't getting home and you don't really have the horses on the back end to cover off the blitz, like, you gotta have one or the other if you're going to be a blitzing team, and the Bears did not. And that's why on a few of those drives, Goff had plenty of ability to move the ball downfield. And of course, there was the penalties on the one drive that also set up some touchdowns, and 7 of those points were pick 6 as well. So it wasn't all Bears defense being bad per se, or players being inequipped and not good enough to keep up. But I think it answers a lot of the questions for me of like, okay, like, good on them for taking a different approach, right? We talked about trying to blitz Jared Goff a little bit and get the pass rush going that way, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it did not. But it's such a stark contrast. The Bears are in man coverage. Depends on how you want to define it, 40 to 45% of the time in this game. Last week against the Dolphins, I want to say it was under 10%. Different wide receiving core, though, right? You don't play man against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You play zone against those guys, but you feel like maybe outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, you could get away with man against the Lions. Well, you need some pass rush to go with that, and that was not found as well. So still not a clear answer, a solution in the future there, but a better understanding at least of what was going wrong for this Bears defense. A lot went right for this Bears offense, being able to score another 30-point game. Of course, missed PAT in there as well. And we'll kind of go through some of the things that were working, some of the things that almost worked, and then some of the things that went wrong on that last drive of the game in particular, next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, the better way to do daily fantasy sports, because PrizePicks puts you in complete control. It's not like other daily fantasy where your winning will be based on what other people's lineups were. No, PrizePicks is you versus the house, their projections. You're picking 2 to 5 players, and if they'll score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. It's super easy. You can make your entry in 60 seconds or less, and in every sport across the board, you can find PrizePicks projections available. Just download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. You understand? Just don't forget to enter that promo code LOCKEDON at sign-up for that instant deposit match up to $100. We didn't see enough from the Bears in terms of defense. We know a good defense is important, not only for this Bears team, but for you and your family and your home. And you need to make sure that your home is protected. If you've been thinking about a home security system, but maybe you've been putting it off or not sure about it, now is the time to go in, because Locked On Bears listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. That's half off. It is their biggest offer of the year, and you don't want to miss it because SimpliSafe is the #1 rated home security system with 24/7 monitoring agents on at all times. Voted the best home security system of 2022 for the third year in a row. And their Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe has them capture critical evidence to verify that a threat is real. So you're going to get the highest priority police response. No question whether is it a false alarm or not. No, they'll be able to tell, and they'll be able to get first responders there as quick as possible. So don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system we recommend here on Locked On Bears. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/LockedOnNFL. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. This Bears offense put in the kind of points it needed to in a game like this. I mean, that side of the ball largely got the job done, but I was curious to kind of go through and see some of the more machinations of what exactly they got done. And so, like for example, the offensive line, there was sort of this perception, I think, sometimes that that the offensive line didn't play particularly well, and I think it's compared to the rest of the NFL. No, the offensive line did not play particularly well, but compared to the baseline for the Bears' offensive line, where that bar has been for this team, I didn't think it was a terrible offensive line performance. Justin Fields was still under pressure more than he should be, more than you want him to be, more than you would expect most offensive lines to be, but there were also a noticeable number of plays, and I didn't specifically count them to give you a numerical answer here, but a noticeable number of play where Fields has time. He drops back in the pocket, he's standing there, goes through 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4th read, and is able to work his way across the field, find that open receiver with his eyes, and throw it, and have the time to do so. That's not standing in the pocket for 5 seconds, but getting 3.5 to 4 seconds in the pocket, exactly what you need to allow Fields to be able to make some of those plays. There's still plays when maybe he'll bail a little bit too early, and plays when there's guys that are open that he's not getting to in time or not trusting fully what he sees. He's not perfect yet. It's still a work in progress. There's still development to be done there by Justin Fields. There's also still plenty of plays where Fields has time and receivers aren't getting open downfield. Right? This offense is still that mix of sometimes Fields is not seeing it well, or sometimes Fields is bailing too early, and sometimes the receivers are not getting open. And those don't always happen at the same time, right? So sometimes it's a mixture of all these different things. Certainly, we're seeing more and more of the plays where it does all align, where the receivers are open and Fields does have time and Fields is able to see them and Fields is able to make the throw. And we've seen this offense really blossom in that way. And I really don't have long-term concerns about him as a passer. It's just to point out that, hey, there is still development there and there is still room for even more improvement and that he can be even better as a passer. But I do think we're seeing very good progress in that regard. In terms of Chase Claypool's role, another thing in this offense I want to look at. Only 1 catch, I think 2 or maybe 3 targets in the game, and 19 snaps. It was a little bit of a smaller role, but there were definitely times. We heard Matt Eberflus say it, and I wanted to kind of confirm that on the All 22 that Claypool is the first read, and Fields, he snaps, he looks at Claypool, he's covered, or but whatever the coverage is not going to be a coverage that his route is designed to beat, and so he ends up going on to the second, third read and things like that. That was definitely a factor in this, and it wasn't specifically always Claypool can't get open on that play, but there was one where Claypool's on the outside and he's running a vertical route, and they happen to be in cover 2, so it's kind of a bracket coverage on that side of the field where the underneath defender carries him and then passes him off to the deep safety, and it's there's not. A vertical route like that's not. You're not going to throw the hole between the corner and the safety. The window is not open enough to make that throw because the underneath corner carries him up until he passes him off to the safety. It's Fields snaps, looks, reads that right away, and says, "Okay, I see the coverage that's over there. Claypool's not going to be open." And he comes back to the left side, and I think that was one where he hit either Mooney or Pringle on a curl route, I believe. So it's there is an intention to get Claypool involved on the plays in which he was on the field, but there is still, I think, a limitation to what Claypool can and can't do in this offense, and how many of the plays he'll be on the field for, and what his full role is just yet as he's getting more and more comfortable. I really thought that maybe the most impressive highlight for me of the game was a play that's not going to show up on any of the highlight reels. It was a 9-yard completion to Dante Pettis. We mentioned it a little bit yesterday, but being able to watch it back through on the All 22, it's ridiculous how, Fields drops back and is under pressure and gets flushed a little bit to his right, and then he kind of steps up, or it flushes to his left, steps up and then comes back through the pocket to his right, and as he's sprinting to his right, like towards the sideline, he sees Pettis settling down the middle of the field and jumps and throws this ridiculous angled pass just outside of the reach of coverage to Pettis, who had already kind of stopped running to be open, and catches it and is tackled right away for 9 yards. But like, holy moly, is that such an incredibly difficult throw to make and to be accurate on, and to see it, to read it, and step up and deliver it. And I think he took a hit afterward as well. Like, that is Patrick Mahomes-like. I mean, it really is the kind of play that you only see Mahomes and maybe Allen make in the NFL right now. I think Rodgers in the past has made throws like that, but doesn't quite move as well on those plays as he used to. But man, oh man, like, that was really, really impressive by Justin Fields. I mean, same thing on the 50-yard touchdown, to see that and load up and fire it in there. But there were other plays, like there was a play that, you remember the Darnell Mooney touchdown from last week in the corner of the end zone, where he floated up at the corner? They ran that same play around midfield. I can't remember what quarter it was. And Mooney was again open on that corner route, and Fields was kind of looking at it, but didn't pull the trigger on it, and ended up scrambling around and making a scramble drill and coming back and finding, I think, Pringle over the middle of the field for a shorter gain. Still made a great play with his legs to keep the play alive, and then make a throw that was a completion, and I think a first down. So it wasn't like bad play from Fields by any means, but it does show you that, hey, there is even more room for the passing game to get even better, and for there to be more growth in this offense that's already scoring plenty of points. And of course, the pick six as well. I mean, there's always room for improvement with these guys. And real quick on the pick six, not to harp on this. I mean, of course, bad decision from Fields, bad throw, should not do that, 100%. I do think watching it on the All-22, like, when Kmet turns around for the screen, he starts stepping backwards, like backing up, like, because the defensive end is between him and Fields, so he's trying to create more space behind him. And that's why Fields floats it up and over, because he sees Kmet like kind of backing up, backing away to create more of that separation. And then right as Justin Fields throws it, Kmet stops backing up and stands still, and then watches it go over his head and doesn't jump after it. It's probably too high for him to jump after it at all, but I think Fields overthrew him because he saw Kmet backing up and thought Kmet might keep backing up, and so he threw to where he thought Kmet would back up to. Still an overthrow, still a bad decision, so it's not Cole Kmet's fault that it was a pick six, but I can see where more of Justin Fields' logic was there. It's like, oh, Cole's backing up, let me just flip it a little bit deeper, and then Cole kind of stops backing up, and it is a bad decision anyway. But that was the other thing that struck me about that pick six. But I really want to focus in on the end of the game, the last Bears offensive drive there, where Fields was ultimately sacked on fourth down, because it highlighted to me the missed opportunities that aren't even always exactly any individual player's fault, but just a result of, things not going the Bears' way, and again, where they're close and can take a step forward here, and it's the pieces are there, the moments are there, the concoction is there, it just doesn't quite perfectly come together. We'll break down that last sequence, as painful as the ending might have been, next on Locked On Bears. Locked On Bears podcast is powered by our friends at Built Bar, the makers of the world's best tasting protein bars ever. And they just put out another round of brand new flavors. And they finally converted the coconut brownie into a Built Bar, in addition to just being a Built Puff. You've got the cookie dough chunk, and they've got the candy cane brownie back in both Built Bar and Built Granola Bar forms. They are so delicious and somehow good for you. Like when you describe those flavors, right, they sound like candy bars, and yet they're low sugar, low calories, high fiber, and high protein. It's really an incredible sweet tooth fulfiller without any of that guiltiness. You don't feel that sugar rush or that spike from having a candy bar that makes you feel like crap when you're done anyway. It gives you that satisfaction while also keeping you full and being good for you. It sounds too good to be true when we describe it, but I'm telling you, once you taste it, you will be hooked. I have been eating them for over a year and a half now. Ever since we got to try Built Bars for the first time, I have been all in, and you got to try them for yourself. Get 15% off your next order right now by using our promo code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. Let's focus in on the last four plays for this Bears offense, because, man, they were close. It's like it's right there, and it's one thing goes wrong here, one thing goes wrong there, and it just that's how it's going for the Bears at the end of these games right now. So they get the first down after the defensive holding penalty on one of the throws to Montgomery. So the drive's going. Clock is ticking here a little bit, though. But so the 1st and 10, the last first down, 1st and 10, is the play when Cole Kmet gets cut off by Jeff Okudah. And Cole Kmet said yesterday in a press conference that he was pretty sure, looking at the coverage, that it was some kind of coverage bust by the Lions, because I was watching it too, and I can't tell exactly what they were trying to do there. That Okudah looks like he's trying to like recover and man to go follow somebody else across the field, but everyone else was doing a weird zone thing. But because Kmet was coming from a zone side of the field to Okudah's side of the field, and Okudah was trying to get across the field, there was no one left on Jeff Okudah's side of the field. If he doesn't run into Cole Kmet, which I do believe to be incidental. Kmet said Okudah's knee went right into his thigh. I don't think when two men are running full speed, I don't think Okudah could intentionally get his knee into Cole Kmet's thigh if he was trying to. He could certainly intentionally cross legs with him, I guess, but you could see like Okudah's not looking at Kmet the whole time. He's like looking at either the quarterback or the underneath receiver. You can't really see where his eyes are going, but he's running and not looking at Kmet until he runs it, and then he's surprised too. And I do think it was genuinely like not trying to run over Cole Kmet. But if he doesn't run over Cole Kmet there, it's at least 30 yards. I mean, I can't say for sure touchdown because, Kmet's big and moves pretty well for his size, but I don't know that he's going to outrun all the defensive backs on the Lions side of the field. And the Bears were still, 50, 60 plus yards away from the end zone there. But it would have been possibly into field goal range. I mean, again, certainly 20, 30 plus yards wide open for Kmet to catch it there. Not quite as wide open as his 50-yard touchdown run or 50-yard catch and run on that, but like similar. Like very similar style of going to be wide open. And the other thing too is like when Fields lets go of that ball, it ends up like dying and going like more toward the middle of the field. It's this weird wobbly pass that I wonder if, as Fields is moving his hand forward to throw the ball, if he's seeing Kmet throw to the ground and he's trying to stop the pass and can't, and so it kind of like just putts out of there, sputters out of his hand, and honestly probably could have been intercepted potentially if Okudah hadn't fallen down, because it almost hit Okudah while he was on the ground over there. But so it didn't go, I think, where he was. I think he tried to pull in, and something was weird about the way he tried to throw that ball that just was funky. But again, missed opportunity there, not because anybody on the Bears specifically did anything wrong, but it tells you like, hey, it was almost there for the team. That's the first of the 4 plays. The second and 10, okay, after the Cole Kmet trip and an incomplete pass. Fields drops back to pass. The Bears are running. I think they had 7 guys in protection. There might have been a running back that slipped out at the end, but basically 3-man concept, 2 receivers to his left, 1 to his right. The 2 on the left are running a dagger concept where the outside receiver is running a deep in route and the slot receiver is going vertical. So you sort of clear the space there, and then the in player works his way over the middle of the field, which I think was Darnell Mooney, if I remember correctly. And then on the far side of the field was just another vertical route going downfield, if I remember correctly. Vertical or comeback, not as important. So like Fields drops back, steps up, and the dagger is coming open. Like the middle of the field guy, again, we're talking, I don't remember, 15, 20 yards downfield, working horizontally parallel to the line of scrimmage, coming open. And Fields is stepping up and like getting ready to wind up to throw. And that's when Aiden Hutchinson finishes manhandling Riley Reiff and brings down Justin Fields from behind. And Fields, tries to step up past it a little bit, but Hutchinson like went physical at Reiff and then kind of did one of those like pull him forward by a shirt and down to the ground kind of things that savvier pass rushers are able to get away with. It's not. I don't think it's illegal. It's just it's an effective pass rush move there. And it's like the pass rush couldn't quite hold on there. 1-on-1, Reiff, a veteran, versus Hutchinson, a veteran. Reiff, a former Lion, not teammates with Hutchinson, but the pass rush wins a 1-on-1 there, and it's just not quite enough time. Fields gets another half second there. I think he can load up and hit Darnell Mooney for at least a first down, right, to keep the drive going. No guarantee that instantly means field goal to win the game or points or whatever, but it's, again, it was right there, and it just doesn't quite happen. So Fields instead gets sacked. Bears lose 5 yards. It's 3rd and 15 now, and clock's ticking again. Bears come out sort of a 2-by-2 formation. You've got the slot receivers going vertical, and then the outside receivers running like intermediate out routes. They run like 10, 12 yards, turn and head to the sideline. It was specifically 10 yards out, I remember. And Fields drops back, steps up, and throws to David Montgomery on the little running back check down out of the backfield. And I thought way too quickly that Fields had a clean pocket, had time. None of the immediate offensive linemen were getting beaten. It wasn't like it was a wide open pocket, but like he had all the space in the world to stay in there. And both out routes on both sides of the field were open. The Lions were playing off coverage. I'm pretty sure it was I didn't write it down, but if I remember right, I'm pretty sure it was cover 3. So they were going vertical and trying to keep an eye on the seams, and they didn't come down on the slot route, the out routes out there. It was a zone blitz. Yeah, it was 3 deep, 3 under zone blitz, I believe. I think they had brought another pass rusher in there. But regardless, both out routes on both sides of the field were open at 10 yards. Like, it was 3rd and 15, so it would not have been a first down, although they could have caught it at 10 and then turned up field and maybe got 12, 13, 14, and all of a sudden it becomes 4th and short, as opposed to checking down for Dave Montgomery, getting 7 yards on 3rd and 15, which is a completion and makes a 4th and 8 a lot more manageable than a 4th and 15. But it just felt like he was a little too quick to just say, I think he read vertical seam, no, check down running back. And I'm guessing that's probably what the coaching staff told him to do. Like, I don't think that was Fields independently making a poor choice there. I'm assuming, game situation, it's 3rd and 15. Let's just get 7 yards. You can read the quick seam, and if it's not there, throw the check down. Like, I think that's probably what he was coached to do on that play. It just feels a little bit too conservative for my liking, because 4th and 8 is still not an easy thing. On 4th and 8, you have to have routes that are going to go at least 8 yards. Otherwise, I mean, if you throw it short, you're really tempting fate there. And so all of your routes on 4th and 8 are going to take a little bit more time. You're going to need more time for your quarterback. And the Lions blitz. They bring 5.5 because it's really 6, but then one of them drops out to cover the running back out of the backfield. So they bring a blitz. The Bears have Mooney run a slot wheel. They have Byron Pringle on the outside run like a crossing route / hard in route dig over the middle of the field, like right about 10 yards. And then on the field's right side is Dante Pettis running a curl route kind of on his own. And it's like, man, Fields drops back, doesn't have a ton of time, steps up at first, and Byron Pringle is getting open right over the middle of the field. Like we talked about with Darnell Mooney on the dagger route in 2nd and 10. It's the same thing. It's like receiver is coming open across the middle of the field right as the pressure gets there. Fields, you can see, I think Fields takes his hand off the ball like he's going to cock and then has to do that juke move in the pocket. And then at that point, makes the first guy miss the sack, makes the second guy miss the sack, misses the 3rd sack. Now every route is kind of over with, and guys are just scrambling around. It's just get open now, and it's backyard football. And then, of course, Fields is sacked. But like in this case, the Lions brought this little bit of a delayed blitz on the left side of the offensive line. They had Ryan Griffin in to pass protect because Cole Kmet was hurt, which again, I hated seeing Ryan Griffin on the field for those last 3 plays of the game. You really wish they would have been Cole Kmet or a wide receiver or something. But Braxton Jones and Ryan Griffin take the outside defensive end, and I think Braxton Jones thinks David Montgomery is going to come over and pick up the blitzing linebacker. But Montgomery sees Braxton Jones and Ryan Griffin with one blocker or one pass rusher over there. So he sees that Braxton Jones is going to get off of Griffin's pass rusher and turn and pick up the linebacker, which is the bigger threat. So I think Jones thought Montgomery was going to get it. Montgomery thought Jones was going to get it. So Montgomery slipped out to run a route instead, and Anzalone comes in unblocked, and he's the first pressure that gets to Fields that Fields ends up avoiding there. And so, without we don't know, was that supposed to be Jones? Was that supposed to be Montgomery? I sort of think when in doubt, it should have been both. One of them should have. And if neither one did, then it's both of their faults. Because if you never assume the other guy's going to get it, like just go and get it if you don't have another more pressing responsibility there. So, I don't want to completely throw one under the bus without at least kind of acknowledging that the other could have just as easily had the responsibility there. But regardless, receivers are about to get open when that pass protection just fails. You know what I mean? It's right there. Or Cole Kmet was about to be wide open when he collides with Jeff Okudah and falls down. Like, those last 4 plays, 3 of those last 4 plays, and even on the 3rd and 15, right? The out routes were open. They choose the check down. Like, receivers were getting open on those plays, and it's just like the timing and the protection and being able to get the ball out right when they need to on those key situations just wasn't there. And that's how you lose a football game. But I think it was important to kind of hone in on those 4 plays and kind of show like how close things were and how the Bears are really that close to being able to put these games away and finish them on top. But instead, they finish with another loss, this time to the Detroit Lions, and at the very least, improve their draft stock. But Fields is making that progress, absolutely. I hope going through the All-22 film here and having those notes for you helped you learn a little bit more something about the game that we saw on Sunday. I hope you'll keep tuning in to the Locked On Bears podcast for more of our daily in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Really appreciate you making Locked On Bears your first listen today, and hopefully every single day. If you're looking for your second listen now, check out Locked On Sports today. All the biggest stories in sports each and every day in podcast form, on demand, or on YouTube as well in video form. Cross sports, game recaps, biggest reactions, all that stuff. Locked On Sports Today for your big picture look at the sports world. Coming back tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Bears and another opportunity for you to bear down.